circumstance. Landing without landing gear. It should not have been an issue where the airplane would have been that fast at the end of the runway. This is a almost 3-kilometer long runway, and relatively wide too, about 40 meters wide. Very long runway compared to most other international airports.
Looked ordinary, pearled with winter stars, the kind of sky you never notice until it's too late. Passengers filed into a Boeing 737-800 bound for home after holidays and business trips. Some messaged family, some closed their eyes, some took that one last photo out the window. Minutes later, their names would be whispered through newsroom halls, scrawled onto prayer cards, etched into the country's memory. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Vault and tap the bell. This isn't just an aviation story. It's about accountability, unanswered questions, and a mystery sealed inside a black box with 4 missing minutes. Stay until the end, because the last clue may change how you see the entire crash. It started, as tragedy often does, with routine. Taxi, line up, clearance. The 737-800 rolled down the runway at Muan International Airport in South Jeolla Province. This was Jeju Air Flight 7C-2216, a familiar workhorse on a familiar route. Many of us have taken this exact kind of flight. Budget carrier, quick hop, same orange tail, same safety card in the seat pocket. Then came the birds. Air traffic control had warned of avian activity. Winter brings migrating flocks to the wetlands around Muan. Most days it's a nuisance. On this night, it was a threat. Investigators later found blood residue and feathers in the engines, consistent with a bird strike involving Baikal teal, one of the world's largest migratory duck populations. The warning had been there. The birds were real. And suddenly, both the crew and the aircraft were in a fight measured in seconds, not minutes. What happened next is where the story splits between the merciless physics of flight and the human choices made under crushing pressure. The aircraft lost control and slammed into an embankment and wall near the runway. Flames roared into the winter air. The wreckage bled fuel and fire. By the time first responders carved a path to the fuselage, the scale was unthinkable. 179 lives lost. The deadliest air crash on South Korean soil. The first fatal accident for Jeju Air since its founding, and a national trauma that instantly summoned memories of older tragedies many hoped to never relive. 2 cabin crew members survived with injuries. Their testimonies, when they're ready, may eventually anchor this story in more than data and debris. Here's the first cliff. The black boxes didn't tell all. The cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, Aviation's truth serum, stopped recording roughly 4 minutes before impact. The very window you would want to hear fades to silence. Was it impact-related damage? Power interruption? A recording fault? Investigators haven't released a definitive cause for the gap, and families have questioned why conclusions would be shared publicly before every data point is secured. That gap is now the void into which every theory is thrown. Early summaries stress the word preliminary, suggest a scenario that will sound painfully familiar to students of aviation history. After the bird strike, 1 engine was damaged. Investigators say the crew may have shut down the wrong engine, the still functional one, leaving the 737 starved of thrust and bleeding altitude it could not afford to lose. In chaos, Checklists are lifelines. In chaos, misdiagnosing which engine is failing can be fatal. Families have challenged the speed and certainty of that narrative, interrupting briefings, demanding full evidence, and warning against pinning this on pilot error, while so many questions remain. If you've heard of the British Midland crash in 1989, you know how a single misidentified engine can rewrite fate. Did history echo here? Or is there more we don't yet see? Pause and step inside the cabin in your mind. A winter flight, a low-cost carrier with a safety record many trusted. Cabin crew buckled in. Passengers mid-text, mid-prayer, mid-sleep. A warning call in the cockpit. A flock in the dark. 1,000-pound birds to an engine are pebbles to a windshield. Except the engine is breathing in at unimaginable force. It's not the first time birds have brought down an airliner, and airports worldwide wage a daily war against wildlife for exactly this reason. But bird strikes alone rarely doom a modern jet. They do, however, demand perfect decisions in imperfect time. Cliff 2. Standard operating procedures. If both engines ingest birds, you can lose thrust asymmetrically. If only one does, you fight yaw and drag while securing the damage. Pilots train for this. They drill for this. The identify, verify, act mantra. Confirm which engine is compromised. Check indications. Cut fuel only when certain. Exists because your senses lie under stress. The preliminary reporting says those steps may have failed. Did instrument cues mislead? Did the strike happen at a critical phase that overwhelmed human processing? Did a cascade of cockpit warnings create cognitive overload? The answers live inside a minute-by-minute narrative the recorders did not yet fully give us. And then there's the question of the landing attempt. Some reports allege the jet attempted an emergency return at a speed profile and configuration that doomed it. Too fast, wrong gear setting, the kind of compounding that turns survivable into catastrophic. Families have asked for caution. Do not cement findings while so many shards are still sharp. Do not narrate certainty when the data itself went dark. Their right to demand rigor. Aviation safety is earned in detail, not headlines. Behind the smoke and numbers are people. A father in seat 21C with a box of sweets for a child waiting in Gwangju. A graduate student who changed her return ticket to surprise her parents. A cabin crew who knew every safety demo by heart and still strapped in to serve one more flight. The dead do not get to answer for the living's mistakes. That burden falls on investigators, regulators, and yes, on airlines and manufacturers who must build redundancy for the moments when humans break. Cliff 3. The airport itself. Muin sits near wetlands. Migratory corridors are an environmental fact, not a policy choice. Airport wildlife management is a dark art of radar, pyrotechnics, habitat shaping, and relentless monitoring. ATC's bird advisory shows the system saw the risk. Was it enough? Were runway inspections and dispersal tactics appropriate for the season and time of night? Should traffic have been halted? Most airports thread this needle daily without incident. But when luck runs out, the ledger looks cruelly simple in hindsight. That's the point of investigation, to make foresight from hindsight. Meanwhile, legal and political storms are gathering. The deadliest crash on South Korean soil rescripts national memory. Past disasters with Korean carriers, the haunting of Guam, Busan, San Francisco. Low cost does not mean low safety, and Jeju Air's record before this night was clean of fatal accidents. But safety cultures are tested at their edges. Families want compensation, but more than that, they want the full chain of causation, not a headline about pilot error, not a shrug about bird strikes, not a shrug about equipment. They want the A to Z, and they deserve it. So, what do we know? And what still hides in the gaps? We know a bird strike likely occurred. We know residues were found in engines. We know the aircraft crashed at or near the airfield perimeter with catastrophic loss of life. We know the black boxes lost their last 4 minutes. And we know early briefings have pointed to misdiagnosis and mismanagement in the cockpit. Claims the families are challenging until full evidence is produced. We also know that pilot error is often the last link in a longer chain. Wildlife hazard, human-machine interface, training adequacy, checklist design, cockpit workload, airport environment, maintenance records, and corporate safety culture all braid into the final outcome. Cliff 4. The 4 missing minutes. Imagine the soundscape. The bark of a master caution, the surge and spool down of fans, the yaw you feel in your bones, the quiet as one engine's thrust drops, the surge if the wrong one does, the scramble to configure, the math of runway remaining, the decision to commit to a return or go around. These are the beats that turn a narrative into an NTSB-style timeline. Without them, we are listening through a wall, hearing only the thud and not the shout. Was there an electrical bus issue that killed recorder power? Was there a wiring fault? A quirk unique to this airframe? Investigators have to answer that before they can ask us to trust the rest. And there's one more thread that could change the story. Some modern avionics systems carry partial mirrors of flight data. Maintenance computers, ACARS messages, even air traffic surveillance logs can paint outlines of speed, altitude, attitude. If those secondary traces are intact, they might stitch the last 4 minutes back together. If recovered passenger devices captured audio or video, that too can matter. In other cases, bystander cameras have become surrogate black boxes. Is there a clip out there? Grainy, shaky, heartbreaking. That holds the arc of the final turn. If you've stayed with me this far, you can feel why this isn't just an accident story. It's a test of whether systems designed to catch human error actually do, whether environmental risks are truly managed, and whether truth can outrun convenience. Subscribe if you haven't. Part 2 will follow the families into hearing rooms and hangars, trace the airport's wildlife battle, and break down cockpit ergonomics that can make or break a crew under siege. One last image before we close. A charred notebook found near the wreck, metal coil warped, half the pages singed shut. On the intact page, a to-do list for the new year. It ends with a simple line, call mom. For minutes of missing data, one flock in the dark, and a country asking whether those 4 minutes hold a single human mistake or the map of a problem far bigger than one cockpit. When the next release of evidence arrives, will it prove the simple story or blow it apart? Stay with us. Part 2 is coming.